This is Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for joining us for our podcast series discussing the themes and ideas expressed in the beloved story of Babette's Feast by Danish author Karen Blixen. Throughout the series, we'll talk with artists and special topical guests discussing things such as refuge and sanctuary, the art of hospitality, the importance of cultural exchange, beauty and pleasure, and the power of living in community. What makes our podcast unique is that you'll also get an insider's look at the many artistic and production decisions that are made in putting together a theatrical production as we rehearse a new play adaptation of Babette's Feast. So sit back and settle in for a stimulating dive into deep ideas and the world of theater magic. I'm so excited today to have a conversation about the gift of cultural exchange. We're talking about that because it stems from Babette's Feast, this beautiful play that the theater company is currently working on leading up to performances in November at the Gladstone Theatre. So today, in this conversation about the gift of cultural exchange, I'm joined by two guests, as usual. Both of them are performing artists in Babette's Feast currently as we speak. And so I'm so excited to have them join me for this conversation. And I think they're going to have so much to bring to the table. So first, I'm joined by LOGAN INDEWEY. LOGAN is an Ottawa-based performing artist who is a two-time alumni of Algonquin College, graduating with honors from the performing arts and script writing programs. He aspires to establish a career in the Canadian performing arts industry and is grateful for Ninth Hour's aid in that journey. He has previously played the roles of the officer in Ninth Hour's original audio drama, Beauty Will Save the World, released in 2024. 9 Inch Nails in Bisexual, Captain Phoebus de Chatapart in The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in 2024, Derek in Sell the Children, and Joe Clark in the 1979 play. And he performed as Adam I in the development of Ninth Hour's original theatrical work, Frankenstein AI, in the spring of 2025. Great resume, Logan. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, I look forward to our discussion. And I'm also joined by LAVINIA Salinas. LAVINIA is a physical, dance, and musical theater actor. She's been engaged in several writing, physical theater, and body movement activities, including Fringe Festival Toronto in sundry languages in 2017 and Multiple Choices in 2019. She was in Tarzan and Gloria with Canada Theatre and Milonga Night in 2022 with Ottawa's Fresh Meat Festival, as well as part of the development series in 2023 by Tactics with her Milonga Night that she wrote. You wrote Milonga Night, Lavinia, right? That's amazing. Ninth Hour credits for Lavinia include The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in 2023, playing Fenris Ulf, one of the bad guys. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 2024, playing Quasimodo as well as some other characters. And in the development work of the original theatrical piece, Frankenstein AI, in the spring of 2025. When Lavinia is not acting, she's doing yoga, singing, or dancing tango. Welcome, Lavinia.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I'm so thrilled to be here today.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about cultural exchange, and you two are so great for it. We were talking, of course, before the episode about just all the various places that you've lived, and we found out we have in common that we've all at one point lived in the maritime provinces of Canada. I'm from Nova Scotia. Lavinia, you've lived in New Brunswick.
That is right.
And then Logan, you have lived in?
I was initially born in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Don't remember a thing about the place, but PEI is a home for me because that's where my father's side of the family's from.
Okay. So born in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and your father's side of the family's from Prince Edward Island. PEI, as we like to call it.
Or the island.
The island. That's right. Yeah. And Lavinia, where were you in New Brunswick, and why were you in New Brunswick?
Oh, I was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah?
A very rural community.
Okay.
Northwest New Brunswick, close to Grand Falls.
Okay.
And,
I know that area.
Yeah, close to Harlan and Florenceville, Bristol.
Okay.
And we were working in environmental organization.
Really? That's cool.
Yes.
And you embraced being there?
I did, totally.
Wow.
I was even carrying wood and feeding the wood stuff and shoveling the driveway.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where were you before that? Where did you live before there?
I was in Toronto.
In Toronto. Oh, so you went from like urban Toronto, Ontario to rural maritime New Brunswick.
And before that, I was living in Chicago.
In Chicago before Toronto. Holy smokes. Wow. Well, we're going to dig into all this. Like, yeah. Well, because like we were talking earlier, about culture, what it means, how do you define it, right? And we were talking about how I think anyone who's lived in the maritime provinces of Canada or Atlantic Canada, including Newfoundland, there are distinctions. There are differences between culture in places that are near the ocean. There's a different feeling, there's a different culture, different practices, different customs. Of course, places in Canada all have different histories to them as well, and different people groups that moved here, different indigenous groups that live in different parts of Canada. So there's all sorts of like different influences of the history. Like I know where I'm from, Nova Scotia, there's all sorts of different heritage, German, French, English, the Acadians, the Mi'kmaq, there's just all sorts of stuff going on historically that impact the culture that is formed today. And so it's like, I sort of like believe that culture evolves and changes with time, but it's unique, and it's unique to certain geographical regions, and it's unique to different language influences and different custom influences. And then we were also talking about military earlier. That's all of us have like a military connection of some sort. I grew up in a place that had a military base, although I had no connection to it other than a lot of my friends were in the military, moved around a lot. Mm-hmm. So you become used to making new friends, of course. And it was so great actually to have friends that had lived in so many different places all over the world, actually. They were posted in different places. And so you learn so much actually just from that, instead of only knowing people who've only lived where you are. And so you appreciate the pluses and minuses, I suppose, of different cultures as you move around and stuff. So like, let me ask you guys a question. Like, how do you define culture loosely? Like, what do you think culture is, if you can define it at all, Logan? Like, what do you think?
Oh, wow.
How do you define it? Yeah.
Well, it's a question I've often have thought of because, as you said, being a base brat, I've lived everywhere.
Have you? Oh.
And the simplest answer I can give is culture is the explanation to people groups. And I don't mean that strictly down national lines.
Right.
There's the culture of Ninth Hour. There's the culture of artists. There's the culture of actors. What
military culture?
There's a military culture. The culture is what defines you to specific tribes. And more than that too, I also think that culture is something deep and romantic and penetrative, and it can't easily be put into words. This might be a bit of a bad analogy, but to give an analogy, you can read all the books you want on the theory of acting, on how to be a good actor, on how to do breath control, on how to emphasize certain words. You can read all the Udahagen you want, all the this, that, and the other thing. But you never really truly understand acting until you're finally on the stage doing it. Likewise, I view the same with culture. I believe that there is a deep romantic Ottawinian culture, Canadian culture, Ontarian culture, whatever borders you want to define. I think that it is there, but you can't just simply chalk it up to a set of hats and dances you do. You can't just simply say that, oh, you do this and you're an Ottawinian. I think to really be an Ottawinian, you have to experience it. You have to live it. And that's just the case with all other cultures. And that's what defines these cultures and these people groups, because you actively live in them.
I think that's great. That's a great definition. What do you think, Lavinia?
Well, I agree with Logan that culture is always evolving. So in my particular experience, I do understand culture as a set of traditions, values, food, music, the way you dress. There is a difference in between rural, urban culture, seafair, mountains. Different countries, I will say, share the same sea culture. Even you live in Mexico or Canada, because there's something common. The food is based on seafood or fish. So that this feeling that you belong to the same culture just because of this little aspect of the food, like which I go to Babette's Fest, for example.
Right.
When we are setting this display in a place that is surrounded by water.
Right. And it's in Norway set, right? In like rural Norway,
yes,
right?
It's totally rural Norway. It's not the city, it's rural Norway.
Right.
And we hear cod. And when you hear cod
soup,
yes.
Is that what do they eat? Is
Cod
it in the
soup,
play? Is
yes.
it cod soup? Now, and you think Cape Cod, which of course is in Massachusetts, and you think the cod fishing industry in Newfoundland and Labrador is massive as well.
Yeah.
And it, it's interesting, right?
So
that
when
cod,
you go to New Brunswick or you go to the places in Canada where we fish cod,
right.
You say, well, how do we cook the cod? When I was in Knowlesville, the cod fish was common, but there were two ways, like the Acadian way and the more English way.
Oh, yes.
And coming from a
Acadian, you said, right?
Acadian, which is the French from Acadia, which is not the same as French in Quebec.
That's right.
And we talk about language. When you are in rural New Brunswick, the English is the English, but with certain things like the Chesterfield and some English words that people in Ottawa probably won't understand.
Yeah.
So language is always evolving,
right.
And it's very local. It could be very local and very particular of a family member. Like your family may use different words because of the family. I
know I do. Like I say aunt, but I find most people I talk to say aunt. Like for example, right?
Yeah.
So, but I want to stick to my saying aunt because there's a U in that word, darn it.
Right?
Little things.
Yeah.
And you may find in your culture, your particular culture, I will say we have individual cultures, but also things related to personality that you want to acquire as part of your culture.
Right. Yeah. So that's, and while you were talking too, it just made me think about how, I don't know, like, is culture what's left? If it's is it what remains or is sustained, beyond those events or peoples that have inspired it, because you reminded me about the Acadian culture, which still exists in Canada, but also exists, from what I understand, in Louisiana, where a lot of Acadians went.
So they went and came back.
They came back. Right.
They went and came.
Right. They went to Louisiana and decided that it just wasn't that great. Wasn't as good as home.
Well, you can call this culture, but it's evolving and it's changing. And you take good things and bad things.
Right.
So you are not to choose. You don't decide, really.
Yeah, you don't.
You cannot decide because we have media, we have peers and friends. Me, for example, I'm a military family. My military family who moves from place to place.
Right.
My kids are military kids.
They're like Logan.
Yeah,
they're base brats. They're military brats.
I'm a military spouse.
Yes.
Really like your mother, Logan.
My sincere condolences.
But there can be benefits to this, right?
There could be benefits because I know many military families who do not want to be moved from their bases and they do everything that it's in their hand not to move.
Okay.
But then I see some kind of closeness to accept change. So when you are eager to change a physical place, you are also opening your mind to different experiences.
I see.
And I'm a very global citizen of the world because I've been in many, many different places. And where I grew up, the culture was very different from the next culture that I visit. And then very adventurous. Like I would say, my family comes from a generation of adventurous people who were immigrants in a different country. Like they came from different countries and they adapted. They kept different traditions, from the local population, and they kept them, and they still live in me. Like I keep practicing them.
So certain things you keep because it's good and you like it, it's beneficial, and then certain things maybe you leave behind.
Lentil soup. My recipe for that is delicious, so I won't abandon that. And I've been teaching my son how to cook it. Okay. Because it has to be passed through the generations. But some other traditions were dropped. Right. Because they just didn't work with the surroundings, or they were not longer important for that part of the family. Right.
I see. And can you, so where is the different places you've, first of all, I think you were saying something super important too, Logan, about it's not about national borders necessarily. Well, and and Europe, of course, is quite small in a sense. But then it's like we were talking about the Acadians going to Louisiana, and you often think the northeastern states of the United States probably have much more in common culturally to the Maritimes, right? In this sense, like Maine, right, has probably more in common with New Brunswick. And then you think about like Southern California or Texas has less in common probably with the maritime provinces, and maybe Mexico has more in common with some of the southern United States, and maybe some of the northwestern states, like Washington or Oregon might have more in common with British Columbia than anyone in Ontario would have in common with British Columbia. So it's interesting. It doesn't necessarily, like you were saying, Logan, I think that's true about the national borders sometimes being irrelevant when it comes to like cultural similarities or differences, especially even just on the North American continent, I bet, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So where are the kind of places you have lived, if you don't mind sharing, Lavinia and Logan? Logan, why don't you go first? Where are some of the different places that you've lived in your life, in your young, short life so far? Because I grew up in the same house. Like I lived in the exact same house until I left, like for university. Really? So, but I know that's you guys have different backgrounds than that. So yeah, Logan.
Wow.
Where have you lived? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had that experience. Sometimes I wonder. No, I shouldn't say whether my life would be better off than that. No, not like that. But I wonder what it'd be like to have that hometown and what have you. But
when someone asks you where are you from, you actually have an answer.
Exactly.
It's hard to answer the question.
I tell people I might as well be from Ottawa. Between Alberta and Ontario. But my full life story, the full journey. Yeah. I was born in Fredericton, New Brunswick, but my parents, I think, were living in Oromocto at the time. Okay. And then my first memories were from when we were living in Montreal, which technically, though je ne parle pas français, my first words were in French. Really? So technically, my first language is French, but not really. Papa, mama. No. Close. My mom, when I was being a toddler, curious one, she'd point at me and say, touche pas. And me as a toddler, monkey see, monkey do, I'd look back at her and point at her and say, poopa.
like trying to get the words, but not quite. It. Yeah. Ooh.
And after Montreal, we moved to CFB Edmonton. Okay. I believe the official name is Steel Barracks or something to that end. It's the military housing out in rural Edmonton. That's sort of, if you may, like where my childhood began, where there's sort of like a period in your life where it's like you are a child, now you're no longer a toddler. Right. That's sort of where it all began.
Memories.
That's where the memories really weren't just sparse.
Okay.
And I have a lot of nostalgia for that period. And what people say about nostalgia goggles is true, because military housing is objectively terrible. When people refer to things as military grade, I think, so that like breaks under like 5 minutes.
You're not thinking quality, you're thinking low quality.
That's it. But, since I lived there as a child, it's perfect and nothing was wrong with it ever. And then after CFB Edmonton, we moved all the way to Miami, Florida, which was an entirely different experience for me. That would be,
yeah.
I think living in Miami, though it was so long ago and it was only for 3 years, it was that experience that gave me a greater perspective on the world, on culture, on people, and really, as pertaining to this conversation, what is culture? What does culture mean?
Right.
And then after Miami, we were posted to, my father was posted to Borden, so we
Okay.
lived in Barrie. And then from Barrie, we went all the way back to Alberta in St. Albert. So
Wow.
for all intents and purposes, back to Edmonton. I mean, it's like how with Toronto, if you're from Markham, you're from Toronto.
Right, right.
If you're
For
in
people,
St. if you're in
outside.
St. Albert, you're in Edmonton.
I see what you're saying.
And then-
no, was there any overseas posting, international postings other than Miami, Florida? I mean, but overseas, like in Europe or anything? I know some military that happens sometimes, you know?
Well, yes and no. My father would be sent on missions
okay.
overseas. There
Right.
was
Gotcha.
some he served. He did peacekeeping in Bosnia.
Okay.
And he was sent to Afghanistan with the rest of the armed forces when that was happening.
Right. But you never lived overseas per se, but your father did. Is that what you mean? Or
Well, we got close again another time. When after St. Albert, we moved here to Ottawa, and the rest is history. My dad retired, and he now works in Department of Defense. But I was told that if the military was, if we were to stay longer, and since Dad is good at his job, he never gets to choose where he gets to go. The military will send him wherever.
right.
So you're saying, some military folk want to stay where they live. The secret to that is being terrible at your job.
Okay.
But the plan, from what I've been told, was somewhere in Europe, is
okay.
that we were either going to move to Germany or we are going to move to Estonia or Latvia.
Oh, okay.
And as much as, there's this sort of wide-eyed, like, ooh, Europe about it.
Right.
Truthfully, I'm actually rather glad that we settled in Ottawa because I love Ottawa. It is the city for me. And I don't know how I'd feel about growing into an adult in a foreign country.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And what about you, Lavinia? Where are some places you've lived?
Ooh, well, just a few. I was born in Mexico.
Yeah.
And,
Rural or urban?
Yes, but I was.
Was it a big city
It
where you were
was
born?
a small city.
Small city, okay.
An oil producing city close to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
So part of the family history is that the rural communities had to move to the smaller cities for jobs. So this is one of the things that will move people to migrate.
Of course.
One of the number one causes the finding of a job.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that is one. The other one may be persecutions.
Right.
So the people has to go somewhere else to find a new country.
Right.
To have a new place to live. And part of my family comes from that tradition too. The 19th century pogroms in Eastern Europe that ended. The United States had a quota of how many new immigrants the Statue of Liberty will be able to welcome.
Right.
And
right.
they ended up in Mexico
Okay.
through the ships from Europe or some ships from the United States.
Okay.
So my family is from a place close to southern United States.
Okay.
Which is Tamaulipas. It's a country state. It's very close to Texas. It's bordered with Texas.
Oh, okay.
And Veracruz is a very long state.
Okay.
So I grew up in a place close to the mountains, and we had a different culture. I moved like 5 times. I was only 5 years old, and we had moved 5 years. Every single
By the
year.
time you were 5, you'd already moved 5 times.
But
wow.
the reason was because my dad wanted to get better education.
Okay.
So education was his main goal. So we had to move from a smaller city to the capital city of Veracruz. That's why I ended up in Jalapa, which is where I grew up. My second move was to Mexico City, which you have probably heard of.
Yeah.
And it was
Big city.
a foreigner. Like as a kid, I was 11 years old.
Yes.
10 years old. And I had to learn everything. I was like an outcast. I had different words for fruits and vegetables, and I had to communicate and explain what I meant to do. With a pencil, it's called a different way. You come from a smaller city. So we spoke Spanish.
So again,
differently.
like we were talking earlier, like you were in the borders of Mexico, there's all these different cultures.
Yes.
You're going to the city, it's like starting fresh, you're saying.
Yeah. So
Right.
the big sombrero and mariachi is just a generalization of the whole country.
Interesting.
And the music, the jarabe tapatio, is just a general idea. This doesn't represent Mexico at all.
Right, right. Just like we were speaking earlier about Canada being so like multicultural, depending on where you go, right?
Yeah.
So Mexico's has that as well, you're saying, yeah.
So eventually you learn the new culture. For me, it was to learn a new culture, a new language, and finding new friends and new peers. It was not a military family, but it was the same idea of moving here and there. Then for personal circumstances and history, my dad passed away. My mom went back to Veracruz. I had to live with different families.
Oh.
Like as I was 16 years old and I had to move from place to place, like through 3 different, and I was a young adult. Like I had to be an adult or be by myself.
You had to grow up quickly.
I grew up quickly.
Right.
Life made me mature very, very quickly. And then I started to, my university and studies,19 new friends, finding a relationship. So with this new relationship, which is my husband, my 19 years old, we married young. I married when I was 23, but we were traveling together after university and working. We decided to explore the world. And that's why I ended up first in Israel. We were volunteering and I was visiting family over there. So recovering some roots. We went to Egypt.
Like rural in Israel? Or?
Yes, very rural.
Wow.
In a kibbutz.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm talking about he was picking up on bananas and oranges, and I was working with the babies.
Oh.
And I had full immersion learning Hebrew.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Before that, I had learned some French and some German just because I wanted to learn languages.
Okay.
And some Italian just because I just love languages. I don't learn them easily, to be honest.
No?
I know people who can learn languages so easily, not me.
Oh,
But I made the effort and I started to learn more through books. So that's the way you can acquire a culture through books.
through books.
I think that I disagree a little bit on not being able to acquire culture through books.
Okay.
I learned through movies, through plays.
Through movies?
In this play, for example,
Right.
Babette's Feast. I watched the movie in 1987.
Okay. You watched it when it came out? You
Yes.
mean? Like, oh, okay.
Yes,
wow.
I was around.
Wow.
I'm that old.
You're in your prime.
And I just love it because I love international movies. Like in cinema, international cinema is one of my favorite ones. And it's ever been since I probably was a kid.
Wow.
And it was introduced by my father. Like he loved to read and he loved to explore different cultures in literature. We never had the resources to travel.
Wow.
Not even within Mexico.
Wow.
So one way of traveling for me is through books and movies and music. And
Right. And that's at everyone's
Literature.
fingertips. Anyone,
Yes,
right, can immerse.
anyone
So it's
can.
interesting to get this idea of immersing yourself in culture, quite literally, being there in that place. You're learning the language. I mean, you were learning Hebrew, living in a kibbutz. Is that,
Yes.
oh my heavens!
Yes,
like, so you're just right in there, and then, but you're also saying another way to learn culture is immersing yourself in books.
Yeah, I
and
learned about the food. I learned the language with the toddlers.
oh,
So I was studying by myself. A teacher was teaching me to read the newspaper.
Wow.
But the toddlers were my first approach to
Wow.
Hebrew. Learning like a toddler, and I progress very quickly.
wow. So okay, so you've lived in all sorts of different places within Mexico that had different cultures, mountains, and then Mexico City, which is a giant city, from what I understand, like a huge populated city.
Yeah.
And then you lived in rural Israel.
Very
You've
rural.
lived in Chicago, you were saying earlier.
Yeah. And I live in Greece.
Yes, you lived in Greece.
When I was in high school, I learned all Greek, like antique, and Latin, because that was
Okay.
part of the curriculum at school.
Okay.
And of course, modern Greek is not the old Greek, but it was easy to pick up because they knew the alphabet and they knew the words.
Okay.
And I refused to visit the places where the tourists were. I ate in the local, with the locals.
okay.
And I went to the market, which reminds me, the baker. I learned how to buy bread from the baker in the market and how to buy cheese and olives, everything in Greek.
Yeah.
Wow.
And is there a part in the play that you really relate to? Tell me about the part in the play.
Well, am I to reveal one of the characters that I play?
Yeah, reveal.
I'm a baker.
You're a baker in the play?
In the market in the play.
Oh.
Babette.
Babette, because she's throwing a big feast for the community.
Buying bread from the baker. And that reminds me when I was trading my money with the baker.
Oh, I see.
I really relate to that.
Wow. So I wonder if you guys moved so I grew up in the same place, same town, came to university, suddenly getting to meet so many people from all over the world, like a lot of international students. It was like a very enriching time for me.
That's what happened in Israel. I met people from Germany, Australia, New Zealand, England.
Right.
Then we went back to Mexico. We were already married, and he got a job and I got a job, but then it was not for us. So we went to Miami.
Oh my gosh! You both of you lived in Miami.
Wait.
What are the odds?
When did you live in Miami?
Well, you were not born.
Oh, okay.
That was 1993.
Wow. Okay, I was born in 2003. 10 years too late.
10 years too late. And from Miami, we went back to Mexico. That was not for us again. So we went somewhere else. We went to Chicago.
Okay.
Ooh. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chicago. Okay.
And then to Toronto. That's where this is home now.
Okay.
So one thing that
you
people
feel Ottawa's home now.
Oh,
then.
yeah.
Oh.
Canada is home.
Oh, lovely.
Like when I was in Chicago, I never felt part of the American culture.
Interesting.
I went to the university, to the master's degree in philosophy there.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't feel part of that culture at all.
What does it mean? Like, how does someone... Because, and you know, I'm born and raised in Canada, and I've only lived in Canada. And there's multiple times I don't feel part of this culture, which is weird because like culture's more, right, than geography. It's more than nation. It's more, there's what's valued, what the customs and traditions are. It's more than language. It's more, so it's weird. Like, so what do you think, why do we sometimes, because you can be from anywhere and you go anywhere and you can love the culture. Maybe it doesn't relate to you. Maybe you don't want to be there. Maybe you want to, certain aspects of it you like or don't like. So yeah, like what does that mean to like feel like a place is home and feel like you enjoy or embrace the culture, you know? Because yeah, like what was it, I wonder, about Ottawa that just, you know, sunk in for you? I wonder, especially because you've lived so many places, like both of you have, right? Yeah.
I don't know, Charlie.
Well, you know,
I mean, I know it's a common saying, but I think there's certainly truth in it, where home is where the heart is.
Right.
And though I think everybody has certainly have a different experience in relation to this, for me, what was, well, I should say it certainly helped that we were just going to be permanently landed here. So I had that, I could accept that this is now home, whether I liked it or not, which I did like it, thank God.
Yeah.
But I think for me, what it was just, there are like no place on earth is perfect. I know people will say, oh, you must go here because this is where the X is. You must go here because this is where the Y is. Go here because this is where the Z is.
Always greener on the other side.
Always greener on the other side. That's it. But I've lived everywhere. I don't feel compelled to go to these other places because I feel secure here. Yeah, bad things happen here. Bad things happen everywhere.
Yep.
But I think that I'm just, not only am I entirely willing to live with the bad things that go on here, but I feel such a strong desire to contribute to this community, to make Ottawa this great place of which I feel so strongly that it is, that it has to be home for me. Because I want to build here, it is home.
I see. I mean, I feel the same way. I'm attached. I'm attached through my relationships, I suppose, and my responsibilities, but I'm attached through my relationships for sure. Do you relate to that, Lavinia? Like, was it relationships that sort of made you feel like Ottawa's a good place to end up, or what was it?
I guess in my case, it was a military posting.
Yeah. That's what technically
That
brought
was
you here.
the technical reason we have to move to Ottawa, which I did not dislike at all.
Okay.
Because I live very close to. I was in Oromocto too, you know.
Really?
You were in Oromocto?
In what year were you in Oromocto?
Well, I was born in 2003, so what year?
No kidding.
Were you?
2005? No, 2010. 2010.
2010. We would have been living in Miami at then.
We just missed each other.
We keep missing each other.
What are the odds? But now you found each other at Ninth Hour Theater Company.
It was fate. It was fate.
Yeah. So when people ask me, "Oh, don't you miss Mexico? Don't you wanna go back home?" And say, "Well, Mexico is not home for me.
Interesting.
Ottawa is home for me. Canada is home for me.
Right.
I will gladly." Maybe move to BC now that my daughter married and I have a grandson in BC.
Yes, that's a big draw sometimes.
So for me, relationships are the ones who will move me.
Yeah.
And sometimes when these relationships stay in a different place or a different country, I still miss them.
Yeah.
But I won't go back for those relationships. I will bring the relationships with me if I could. That would be my option.
Me too. I'd love to have it all, right? To have it all, where it's like everyone you care about lives in the same city as you or same place as you. That would be amazing.
But at the same time, these same people ask me, why? But Canada is so cold. And I say, I grew up in the mountains.
Right.
And in the mountains when I was a kid, we didn't have parkas, we didn't have gloves, we didn't have a heating system. I grew up in a little apartment or place where we will wake up and the bed was like wet, like it was humidity and cold. And outside you could see the ice crystals in the window. It was probably 0 degrees, but we didn't have any heating. So in Canada, you can be inside at 20 or 18 degrees with heating.
Right.
And, I'd rather have the cold than the insecurity. So when I come here, I feel like I'm safe.
Okay.
And safety, it's invaluable. Like, it's priceless for me.
Yeah.
Feeling safe in a country that provides me with these opportunities to grow and to be myself.
Right.
It's
like a nurturing, being in a place or a culture that's nurturing allows us to grow and be ourselves, whether that be a country, an organization, a workplace, right? I think there's something about, or even being part of a friends group that does that. There's like, and there is, don't you guys think like effort needs to be made to create a culture? Like, there's intention and philosophy and vision behind creating a culture, creating a space, creating a nourishing location or organization, and if where people can thrive and flourish, and some places do that well and some don't, and some have so much going on. Like,
and I think that it's all of our responsibility to create and to keep the positive things about certain cultures. Yeah. And trying to decide which is what is bad is hard because it's very subjective.
Right.
But some things are really, really clear that are good. Like, okay, put the garbage in the garbage can.
Right. Right. Or as we were talking on our way here, like the fact that there's lanes painted on the road and there's traffic lights and stop signs and there's a sort of culture of like vehicle safety, pedestrian safety. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Not that everything about safety culture is good either. Like you can be nannied to death by safety culture, but like you're right. But I think I know what you're saying, right? Whereas it's hard deciding what to ditch, what to leave behind, what to reject, even about the current culture we might live in. What does our culture value? What does it prioritize? What does all the money go toward? And there's a lot about our culture I don't necessarily like or enjoy, and I find it hard. But then there's a lot of things, as you were pointing out, that that I think are good and worth preserving, worth conserving as well. Yeah.
I think it should be worth saying on this note too, another thing about cultures and why they are so beautiful and why they are so magical is because though there are certainly cases where, yes, you can consciously choose to keep this, reject that, et cetera, a lot of it is just spontaneous. It happens because people got together and it felt right. It is just simply a matter of, because no culture is stagnant. It is always changing. It is always evolving. Even in the pursuit to keep it the same, it is still changing, which is why, if we're talking about the bad things, in quotations, however you so define bad, of some cultures, I find that it can come from a fact that it's very heavy-handed, that it must always remain this way. Looking at Babette's feast, it's why... Like
the culture of the
this
cloistered religious community.
Well, that's why Berlevåg and its inhabitants come off as so cold, and not just because they're in the middle of nowhere, Norway. It's because they are so heavy-handed on everything must be the way it always has been.
Right.
They don't surrender themselves to the beauty that their culture will be spontaneous and will evolve and will continue to bear their names, but carry on its own legacy.
Right. They're not easily adaptable. And when the leader of their community dies, they just carry on in the same manner, but it starts to disintegrate, doesn't it? Their culture starts to disintegrate. Babette infuses them like almost unintentionally, it seems, you know?
Well, it's why Babette is so important, because she forces, not intentionally albeit, but her very presence forces that cultural exchange to finally get the Berlevågians to consider the outside world, to reflect upon their own culture, and to be able to finally let it go. Not in a way of abandoning their culture,
That's
not
right.
at all,
That's right.
but allowing it to evolve, allowing it to be fluid, allowing it to be beautiful, and finally letting the Dean's legacy carry on.
Oh, it's so well said, Logan. It's so well said. Yeah, because like they're described in the play as good people. Right.
They are.
And Babette is referred to them, right? Like go there because they'll take care of you. They're good people and they are good people. But yeah, they're their own worst enemies in the end in this because they're sort of, like you said, there's a stubbornness to not evolve or change. That's an interesting conversation, isn't it? About culture. And I have great chats all the time about it, even with regards to Quebec culture. And there's a big desire to preserve as much as you can about that. And you get it. Like if a population, you know, has a rich history and maybe they're a minority population or a smaller population in the world or in the context of a continent or whatever, you know, there's a desire to preserve what you believe to be that culture through language and all sorts of other things. And of course, that's a kind of a profound discussion to have about, is it possible to legislatively, legally preserve culture? Or does culture have to adapt? Is the natural aspect of culture to adapt, to change, you know, again, like, and take in all the good things and the best things and organically reject some of the bad things, I guess. And it's up to people to sort of decide that, I guess. Can it be forced? Can cultural be preserved through force, or is that never going to work? I mean, I guess I asked that question. Yeah. I
think that in my view, language should be preserved.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with the Quebecois.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to be
like
controversial.
there's something. No, you're not. It's not controversial. No, there's something to preserving language. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Language should be preserved.
I mean, we preserve the Greek language, you know, the Hebrew language. So there's something about
Spanish,
preserving.
Yes. And I do believe in the right to preserve that.
Okay, yeah.
And I even go beyond that. You can acquire a culture by learning the language. Like if I say, I admire because I do love Japanese food, right?
Yeah.
I also admire most of the parts of that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could learn Japanese just to be more immersed in the culture. It's not necessary, but I take it as a gain when somebody let's say Charlie wants to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
I count it as a Spanish speaker, and he's part of the culture too.
I think that's really interesting. And there's an integration going on in which if you've learned that language, you're integrating better. I also heard it said, I don't know if this is a famous quote or not, that language is culture. Like I've heard that said, that it's kind of a profound statement that language is culture. I mean, we've discussed about all sorts of stuff, but there could be something to that. Even Babette, right, in the play, she's speaking French. She's using French words for the food.
Although it says that she never learns the language enough. But
does it say that?
Yes.
Oh, she doesn't learn. She doesn't learn their language enough.
She's broken in her Norwegian. She doesn't learn the language just enough to negotiate in the market.
Oh.
And to talk to the sisters.
So to function, she's learned it enough to function.
And I'll give you one example that I saw in Miami. Maybe you'll remember. Many Cubans went to Miami,
That's right.
Yep. The Marieles. And
That's
before
right.
that, the Cuban Revolution.
Right.
And I saw in the drugstores a person specifically trained in Spanish. That was the language she had to talk to the customers who never wanted to learn English because they went to the United States in the 1950s.
Okay.
And they were set on their ways, and they were always adamant about not learning English. But they never integrate to the American culture.
Right. That's interesting.
Even if you speak a little bit.
Right.
A little bit. It shows some intention from your side to be part of the culture, which I believe you always have to do. To the place you go, you really have to
try to learn
the culture.
Well, it's the old saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
When in Rome, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, like and you seem to be a shining example of it, Lavinia. Like everywhere you went, you seem to want to learn the language and the culture, and I just think that's such a beautiful thing. You are listening to Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. We'll return in a moment with the rest of our discussion.
Ninth Hour Theatre Company presents Beauty Will Save the World, a brand new musical audio drama for the whole family. Embark on a seafaring adventure and thought-provoking cautionary tale about the importance of passing on beauty to the younger generation, where relationships once lost are found again, when tested to choose what they stand for and who they will stand with.
Beauty will save the world! I've felt it! I've lived it!
Laughter, action, and tears, reminding us about the sacred things that make life worth living. To listen to full episodes or exclusive behind-the-scenes content, go to beautywillsavetheworld.ca.
I want to more than just survive. I want to hope and feel alive. I want to live, truly live.
beautywillsavetheworld.ca.
And now, back to the discussion. So like we talked, of course, about language being this, how to embrace a culture. We talked about being there, immersing it. We've talked about books and movies and literature. So, but I would say for me, perhaps it's my learning language is that to me, it's people, like just the people I've met. The benefits of living in a multicultural society is so beautiful, and that I've learned so much from other people, and like you said, you learn what to take in and what not to take in, what to accept, what not to accept. But boy, have I learned some awesome things from people who've lived all over the world by just getting to know them and getting to hear their stories. And you just like how awesome it sounds. And I have friends that love traveling too, and they just love it. And anyhow, I just love, you learn about other cultures through people, through their stories. And I like what you said too, Lavinia, about embracing, you have to, like, there's some responsibility in a sense about whether it be you are somewhere where there's culture, or you're immersed in a subculture, perhaps in the country that you're in, or you're immersed in a friend group and there's a sort of culture there. Like the onus is kind of on you to sort of get to know what people love, what makes them tick. I mean, I could argue there's religious culture, there's gay culture, there's all sorts. There's theater culture. Let's face it. Like people in theater, like we have a culture. We do. We have traditions and customs. Tango culture is what we said. Yeah,
yes,
like
tango.
Yeah, and like for someone who just like walks in, you can be like, "What the heck are these people doing?" Like if anyone walked into a rehearsal at 9th hour, they would be like in a culture void. They would be like, "What is going on here?" So it's interesting. There's cultures within cultures and subcultures,
and
right?
Subculture within the world of theater. Not actors are the same. No companies are the same.
That's right.
Because you take a company from Montreal, and here we have different perspectives, different ways of doing theater. That, like just line-based theater, the realistic theater, and they wouldn't understand what this very experimental, crazy
physical theater, ensemble theater. It's a different thing. You're right.
Montreal is different.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Than Ottawa.
Yeah. No, I believe you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, something that's like we talk a lot about sort of the differences between all these cultures and these subcultures, how like 9th Hour is very different from, say, the Ottawa Little Theatre. But I think one underlying premise is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. As much as there are these differences, I think at the end of the day, it's all, if you may, speaking the same language. If I may give a bit of a story.
Yeah, please.
Still this year. I believe it was March or April. I went on a vacation to Cuba with a bunch of friends. It was a very lovely time.
Oh, nice.
Some of it did remind me a bit of Miami because...
Oh, that's interesting.
Of course.
Okay.
But we were going on a tour to Havana, lovely city.
Okay.
And we were all the way in a resort in Veradaro. So we took a bus all the way there and we passed through, I believe it's the second biggest town in Cuba. And when I was there, I saw a Masonic temple, and Freemasonry runs very deep in my family. And something about just seeing the Masonic temple there, it made as much as we draw lines in the sand, as much as we show the differences, the beautiful differences between all cultures.
Freemasons you're talking about?
Freemasons,
Sorry,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's just seeing that temple there made the world feel like a more connected and smaller place than we initially give it credit for. The world is a big, vast, beautiful place, and there are many
historical connections, right? There's so many interesting historical
But just seeing that temple there, the world felt so much more connected. And so as much as these beautiful exchanges of cultures show the wonderful differences between all people, I think to the same end too, it shows how united, how connected we all are, and how much the world really is a small place.
And certainly Babette would have experienced that, like even though it's different culture, different language, experiencing their hospitality, generosity, love changed her and protected her as a refugee from the French Revolution. One of the French revolutions, as we learned, because there were many.
But in her cultural exchange, it shows that she and the Berlevagians spoke the same language, the language of food, of sharing, of hospitality, how that one dinner, that was the language of food and giving, of bounteousness.
Ooh, I love that idea of speaking the same language, but it's not a verbal language. It's like a language of life, a language of living or practice or culture,
Yeah, and I think that when going back to food and Babette's feast, the amount of food for Babette has to be huge, as we can see also so many courses and sophisticated. Whereas for the Puritans, a small amount means generosity and hospitality too. Brings me back to one experience I had.
Yeah.
One of the many I had in rural areas back in Mexico. At that time, I was ovo-lacto vegetarian.
You were what?
Ovo-lacto vegetarian. It means I only ate eggs, cheese, and vegetables, and some fish.
Gotcha.
Pescatarian. Okay. But I didn't eat any meat. Well, my family, I don't eat pork at all. Okay. But I didn't eat meat. So we come with my husband and visit this rural community with a huge celebration. This is the town celebration of the year. They spend all their money in this celebration. They organize for an entire year and throw away everything. So make the traditional dishes.
Okay.
One of these dishes is mole. It's like a Mexican curry.
Huh.
Yes, it's like a sauce with chili pepper and stuff, but has meat.
Uh-huh.
Then the family, we are honored to be welcome for the family. And they say, oh, have some mole. And they're like, I really don't like it. This is not something that I will eat. But then I spot on the stove kind of lima bean broth, vegetarian.
Okay.
And I say, but I would totally have lots of that. So they were okay, but my husband was, you gotta eat it. You gotta eat it. Because they are offering you this, but I say yes to some other thing. And they are okay. Because he felt compelled to eat something
that he didn't want to eat. But out of like a politeness, because to reject the food is to reject the culture,
but he was eating it.
Right.
He was eating it and he was polite.
Right.
But then what happened, I'll tell you what happened. He said, now I have to eat double of it.
What?
And he said, no, you don't have to. But he insisted. He got indigestion.
Oh, no.
And we were sleeping over and he caused more trouble to the family than
because of that.
Because of that. Because
okay, I see what you're saying,
You
right?
see?
Yeah, because out of this politeness to eat it. Well, there's like, because one of my friends like eats like a lot. I don't eat much meat, but that's almost all they eat. And so you're just like surprised. And there's this great scene from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. It's like this funny movie that I can't remember the year, but it was like, oh, you don't eat meat? Oh, well, I'll cook you lamb then. You know, and it was because it's like the idea culturally that someone doesn't eat meat, right? It's preposterous. In some cultures, it's like, of course, everyone eats meat. Meat is like the foundation of the food. And then in other cultures, it's not so much the thing. In other cultures, it's fish. In other cultures, it's whereas like in the town in Babette's feast, of course, fish is cod, as we were talking about earlier. And what was the soup called? It was
bread and ale soup.
Bread and ale soup. Right. And Babette's coming from Paris, France, as like this famous chef. So for her, like, what are these people eating? She thinks to herself.
But you see the change in the characters when they say, yes, we will have the food that she's proposing us.
Right. Because what's happening when they see her buying all these things and preparing the feast? Are they like, they're scared?
Am I allowed to say it?
Are they scared? Yeah. Yeah, of course.
There is a turtle in the story.
There's a turtle.
Yes.
A turtle. What's the villagers' reactions to the turtle?
Let us pray.
They start to pray because they wonder what's going on here culturally. Right. So like when they do force themselves to eat the feast that she's prepared, right? But they're nervous about it, correct? Is that how
it's yeah.
And they were reluctant at first. And then but what happens so when they do embrace this food, why do they, for starters? And then what happens to them?
They say, we made a promise.
Yeah.
So we are bound. This is the only thing that she had ever asked us to do for her. We will eat it, but we will cleanse our tongues of all taste.
I see.
We will ignore this. We will not enjoy it at all. Even if we enjoy it.
Oh, is that the attitude they embrace?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it defies their culture to eat all these different things, right? Yeah. But they decide to embrace it, but not enjoy it.
No.
But what
not
happens?
At all.
Do they enjoy it ultimately?
Oh, well, you think you have to come and watch it.
Come and watch the play. I see. Oh, but you brought up so many great points, both of you, about cultural exchange. And it's always, you can be surprised about what you'll find that you like, right? And especially when it comes to food, let's face it, like that's the beauty. That's one of the gifts of cultural exchange is a lot of people I talk to, like that's why they love living in certain cities, because there's all the food that exists in the world can be found right in that city. Like there's a restaurant for everything, and there's fusion restaurants, and there's this.
When I was in Toronto, because after Chicago, I moved to Toronto.
Right.
And I found myself living in a former Italian neighborhood.
Okay.
And most of my neighbors were Italian ladies.
Oh, okay.
And we had a very nice cultural exchange.
Yeah.
But one of my neighbors was also from Turkey.
Oh.
So one was Muslim, the other one was Roman Catholic, and we had like a mix, Christian and Jewish.
Yeah.
So it was very funny because the Italian lady will tell me, oh, my neighbor, the Turkish, gave me this dish, but I don't know what it is. So do you want it? Okay. And then my Turkish neighbor will tell me, oh, my Italian lady gave me this dish, but I know there may be pork in this. And I said, no, thank you. I don't want that. But we were exchanging food.
Yeah.
And to the Turkish lady, I will say, oh, I bake with kosher butter. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. So it was very nice to live in this neighborhood that also had a lot of Russian, a lot of Korean influence, Russian, Christian, Orthodox Russians, Jewish Russians, Koreans with different Christian religion, Korean church. It was a melting pot.
Melting pot. That's what they say.
In the middle of the melting pot in Toronto.
Wow.
Which Toronto is famous for.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually, I remember learning that word like in school, like that, multiculturalism. And then there's melting pot, there's integration. And we kind of talked about it a bit in our discussion about like integrating into a culture, adding to a culture, the concept of melting pot. I've heard that. What do you mean when you said melting pot? Like, I'm curious because I've heard that term too.
Have you heard that term?
Oh yeah, melting pot, cultural mosaic, salad bowl, all the analogies.
Cultural mosaic. Okay, what does it mean, melting pot exactly?
Well,
I forget the meaning of it.
When you put melting, you put different ingredients and they dissolve and they blend into one single, like a fondue.
Right.
Like you know how to make fondue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you mix 3 different kinds of cheeses and you put a little bit of special alcohol and you blend it.
Right.
And they just melt in a more flavorful cheese melange.
Okay.
That is a melting pot.
Okay.
That you take elements from here and there.
Right.
And it becomes something richer.
You take the best of everything and it becomes something richer. Okay, so kind of like a recipe. It's sort of like, you're putting all these things on their own are okay, but together it's like so much more rich.
That is why I think Canadian culture, if we were to say, what is Canadian culture? It's a melting pot.
It's hard to define what Canadian culture is.
But
it really
is. It's like a melting pot because you have many places where to choose from.
Right.
It's not only cuisine, but also people.
Right.
From so many different places.
Yeah.
Which is also happening in Fredericton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fredericton is probably the most multicultural city in Canada.
You'd say that.
Even more than Toronto.
No. Really?
Yes.
That's surprising to hear.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you've lived there, right?
When I live in Knowlesville, Florenceville, Bristol, used to hire McCain. You're probably familiar with the potatoes. The French fries.
Yeah.
McCain is a company from New Brunswick.
Oh, right. Of course. Yeah. McCain's. Yeah.
Potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they hire people from Colombia.
Okay.
To do their IT.
Yeah.
They hire people from Russia too, from India.
Okay.
To outsource later on.
Right.
The whole scheme change. And many companies there, my friends from New Brunswick all come from Europe.
Oh, wow.
Most of them.
Oh, wow.
Because the trucking industry needed truckers.
Right.
Nobody wants to do this job.
Interesting, yeah.
So they hire people from England. My friends from England, my friends from Holland. They come from Europe.
Wow.
In New Brunswick. I met them in New Brunswick.
As you were saying earlier, people move places for jobs often, right? Yeah. And
after 2 years, they are open to be permanent residents and then eventually citizens.
Okay.
But first 2 years, you have to be only a trucker.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh, you probably met a lot of different people over
from many places.
Wow.
Only one person from Mexico, I think.
Okay.
But Ecuador and you name it.
Wow.
All countries.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just that's the thing about Canada, right? It's hard to define the culture because it depends who you ask and it depends where you are geographically, and it depends, right? It really does depend. And you try to sometimes you try to make it about values, but it's hard to define that as well. It really is no, this was such a, what do you think, Logan? Yeah.
But I mean, we're going to say that because we're Canadian, but I really think that that's just the case with everywhere and it's why I say that culture has to be experienced. I've lived in the United States, the Americans, the Miamiites, they'll say the same thing.
Right.
They'll tell you the same thing in Australia. They'll tell you the same thing in Europe. It's that thing of culture isn't just wearing a hat and doing a dance. Right. It is something that is deep and transcendent and ever evolving and always has to be experienced. It's why I think the question of what is a Canadian is as superfluous as what is a Dane? Because you can only know by experiencing those things. I can tell you what I believe some Canadian values are, what some aspects of Canadian culture are. I can tell you a whole boatload of Canadian history.
Sure.
But to just simply say that these artifacts, these historical facts, or otherwise just these admittedly superficial gestures or clothes or what have you is the be all end all of what it means to be Canadian. No, that doesn't define how deep and transcendent and romantic and all the other words combined of what it means to be Canadian, because it has to be experienced.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
I also think that when you bring multiculturalism in the equation, you also improve education.
You do what?
Education, improve education. For instance, when I was in New Brunswick, many of the jobs that I'm mentioning were taken by people from different places because no one in the province was skilled to do it.
Okay.
Or they didn't want to do it.
Or that, right.
Because computer science was not a thing in the nearby community, so someone else had to do it. But in that sense, the culture was influenced by saying, oh, I am a local, but maybe what about if I start studying computer science too?
Right.
What about if I do this? Well, many of these kids went to Alberta or some other places because the salaries, the wages are lower in New Brunswick. But this exchange pushes some values that are positive values.
I like that. It sort of challenges us to reflect and see things differently, right? Through cultural exchange. That's beautiful, Lavinia, to hear that. Let's go for final words. What would you want to? What final words would you have for our listeners that you want to leave them with as we wrap this discussion up?
I find that, especially in this day and age of globalism, of the internet, the fact that the world is at your fingertips, an unfortunate side effect I find coming from a lot of people I know is that they will claim that either they have no culture or that their culture is boring or bad for this, that, and the other reasons. And so even though I think that there certainly can be bad aspects of certain cultures, I think ultimately it is a very narrow-minded and superficial view of culture to say that you just outright don't have it, because I think that's impossible. Or beyond that too, that it is just all in all bad because of this reason and that reason, and the whole thing just ought to be thrown out together. No. I think that culture is art, much as the whole of humanity can be described as art. And I think that your culture not only should be celebrated, but that you should find that deep transcendent experience in it, to see it in all the beauty and majesty that it is, and to have that kinship with other people who do share that incredibly unique experience with you. I think that there is so much beauty to being an Ottawinian, to being an Ontarian, to being a Canadian, to being an artist, to being a part of the Ninth Hour Theatre Company, to whatever other definition you want to use. Never degrade yourself, where you come from, and who you belong to. It is all completely beautiful, and it is yours.
Well said. Thanks, Logan, for being part of this discussion today.
Thank you for having me. This has meant the world to me.
Oh, great. And what about you, Lavinia? Last words for our listeners.
It's hard to be brief, but I'll try. Well, for me, culture, it's something that you have to keep. Your own culture. Some bad things, some good things have to be there, but as long as they don't harm anyone else. So I strongly believe if you move to a country where who doesn't tolerate certain practices, especially toward women or some other minorities. I don't think that the people embracing that culture should be here.
Okay.
And I'm very, very adamant about that because it's a violation of human rights. I don't want to say specifics, but I guess you can get it. I really want to encourage families to insist that their kids or their families practice this culture around as a family without the cell phones. Because kids nowadays, they don't have a reference point and they are lost. Or we are lost as a generation, I guess. So please come and watch Babette.
Yeah, again, thank
you for having me here.
Thanks for being part of this discussion, Lavinia. Yeah, so I was joined by LAVINIA Salinas and Logan Indewey, both performing artists in Babette's Feast, coming up at the Gladstone in November 2025.
This has been Telling the Story, a podcast dedicated to exploring faith, spirituality, arts, and culture, hosted by Ninth Hour Theatre Company in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for joining us for our podcast series discussing the themes and ideas expressed in the story of Babette's Feast. You can listen again to this and all our podcasts through YouTube, Spotify, and directly on our website, ninthhour.ca. Be sure to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter to be the first to receive exciting announcements, opportunities, and behind-the-scenes content. We hope you'll join us again on Telling the Story.